Hey there, I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and yeesh, pretty rough week to end things off. And it's Billboard BREAKDOwn.
I don't remember.
So yeah, this is what I'm ending things off with. Really? I'll admit I wasn't really sure how this would all pan out given some projections around Ed Sheeran and 21 Pilots, who both had songs break through this week. But it's one of those weeks where you really can't make any projections long term surrounding what's coming because Cardi B's Am I the Drama is going to bulldoze a chunk of the Hot 100 with an album bomb next week. You can bet on it. But again, when I'm saying ending things off, well, you're not going to be getting any new episodes of Billboard Breakdown for a couple of weeks. There may be some write-ups on my website I might link in community posts, but I'm not going to make any promises. It might just wind up radio silence. And the reason why? Well, this Sunday I'm getting married. And then I'm going to be on my honeymoon overseas. And while you've seen me put this together while on vacation before, I think this is a time in my life where making weekly content's going to take a back seat. After 11 years, I think I've earned that. Now, what's interesting is that by the time I get back, which here should be for October 21st, 2025, what Billboard is going to call October 25th for their week, it's going to be a new Billboard year, because they screwed around so much with their own internal dating system. And thus, we're kind of looking at how we're ending off 2025's Billboard year with this. Man, this year sucked. Case in point, the top 10, where of course Golden from K-Pop Demon Hunters is at number 1. I'm not remotely a fan of the song. I think the situation that led to it dominating the Hot 100 is a terrible blight and embarrassment upon the industry, but the sales and streaming are there, and it's only gaining more radio. I don't think Cardi B is going to have enough to seriously disrupt it. We might be waiting for Taylor Swift. And like I described last week, right behind it, Ordinary by Alex Warren at number 2, which spent the week only gaining more radio and holding firm everywhere else. You're going to need a massive hit to break the gulf with these two songs that they have with the rest of the Hot 100. Because personally, I don't think Man Child by Sabrina Carpenter is really getting there at number 3, or certainly not getting close. It's down on streaming. The radio is already dumping it. It's already been to number 1. I don't see it getting back. Speaking of which, What I Want by Morgan Wallen featuring Tate McRae at number 4. Slight rebound here, mostly courtesy of a nice streaming boost in order to get around the waffling radio, which I've talked about persistently. But it did get over 2 K-Pop Demon Hunters songs, with Soda Pop slightly overtaking Your Idol at number 5 and number 6 respectively. Chalk this up to streaming, yet again. Now this is where we got a nice boost to Love Me Not by Raven Lenae at number 7. Seems like it peaked on the radio, might just be a positional thing here with Sabrina Carpenter's Tears naturally falling out of the top 10. And we also saw a slight rebound for Daisies by Justin Bieber up to number 8 as the radio push is really making up for the streaming losses. And then, and I can't believe I am still saying this, Lose Control by Teddy Swims back at number 9, because despite consistent streaming losses, radio is still not dumping it. Either way, it got ahead of How It's Done from K-Pop Demon Hunters, which is now down at number 10. Again, this might be more on position than any actual streaming losses. I don't think songs from this movie are going anywhere, minus big album bombs. We'll have to see. So in contrast, our losers and dropouts, where in the latter group, I might be a little bit sad that Party For You by Charlie XCX is gone. It's probably going to fall short of the year-end list. But at least Blues Strips by Jesse Murph is also mercifully out of here, taking that god-awful remix of Miami by Morgan Wallen, Rick Ross, and Lil Wayne with it. And as for our losers, well, outside the remix of Somebody Loves Me by Drake and Party Next Door with Cash Cobain slipping back to 40, it's all Sabrina Carpenter all the time here. House Tour at 50, Go-Go Juice at 62, Sugar Talkin' at 67, My Man on Willpower at 68, Goodbye at 70, Never Getting Laid at 84, and We Almost Broke Up Again last night at 91. So what's really filling in the gaps here? I'll be generous and call it a mixed bag, because of our losers, I'm sure as hell not happy to see see I'm a Little Crazy by Morgan Wallen back at 89. But the bigger story might come with Cat's Eye of all groups, because thanks to the VMAs, they saw not only Gnarly return to 97, but Gabriella get a boost up to 45. Now the VMAs were also good to Tate McRae, she's kind of built for that stage, so Revolving Door jumped up to 46 and Just Keep Watching hit 55. But it's not all bad news there, as Somber pushed 12 to 12 up to 41. Him succeeding this year is a huge win, I'll take what I can get. As to the rest, I guess I'll take 6 months later by Megan Maroney at 56, because otherwise we're stuck with Last One to Know by Gavin Adcock at 71, and Your Way's Better by Forrest Frank getting a sales surge to land at 64. It's probably going to be borderline to make the year-end list, especially given Billboard's not enforcing their own rules around recurrency again. If you want an indictment on this year, there it is. But before I get any more heated, we do have our new arrivals. Y'all brace yourself, it was a rough week. So let's start off with number 90, Shot Callin by YoungBoy, Never Broke Again.
And I'm so fresh, I know she wanna fuck me. Bake on on. This day catch it up and hop out, walk his ass down. Then I swear like that top nigga, wipe me down. Bitch, I got that guap, they get you popped and leave you found. I just came through, it ain't hard to tell that I got money. I just came through, like bitch don't tell me nothing, I come from name.
There's a larger conversation to be had about the fall off of YoungBoy Never Broke Again, where him flooding the market in the late 2010s, early 2020s, but barely innovating in the sound, that's only half the story. The other half is his move from Atlantic to Motown, which led to the massive streaming and album bombs drying up really fast. Anyway, after getting a pardon from the current president down south and calling his newest album Massa, no, I'm not kidding with that, he's only got one new song charting that flips that Tweaker song from LeAngelo Ball, and wow, it's almost like YoungBoy never left. The slushy bass and trap percussion around a melody that could have actually had some bombast if YoungBoy's barely on rhythm melodic drawl wasn't smothering everything as he rants about brand names fucking and shooting people that I don't recognize nor care about. Because that's been the problem with YoungBoy for a while now. At his best, he found unique melodic hooks. He could suck you into an intensely detailed and rather paranoid picture, whereas this is just more unkempt aggression with multiple references to showing his ass and his pants being down alongside being in and out of prison. I'm not going to draw any conjecture. And it's not unique or compelling anymore. So of course it's not good, feels desperate to flip Tweaker and not even be better than LeAngelo Ball. But what's worse is that it's not even bad in an interesting way. Even if you're a YoungBoy fan, you're gonna forget this in record time. Number 88, How Far Does a Goodbye Go by Jason Aldean.
On a runaway track, how far does a goodbye go till it don't come back?
And speaking of someone who should have been well forgotten, but he's still here, here's another breakup song from Jason Aldean from his upcoming 12th album. You don't need to ask, he didn't write this one either. But truthfully, I've got no idea who is still seeking out what Jason Aldean's doing, because between the initial goopy guitar lead that supports the gutless trap percussion, before it then breaks into stock country rock with synthetic vocal punch-ins, where some of the guitar soloing gives me a bit of a Poison vibe of all things, it sounds dated, but in multiple and very distinctive ways. Credit to his longtime producer giving the bass a little bit more presence, even if the groove feels like it's on a completely different page compared to the lead melodies. But then we get the content, which is Jason Aldean musing on how far his goodbye will go, where he's convinced that it was enough to reel this girl back, but is coming to the stark realization she may have just skipped town. And what's strange is how otherwise upbeat this is. Aldean is not someone who can normally sell this, but he also normally gets the miserable melancholy. There's just none of that here. Bizarrely, on a brighter note, it might be more tolerable as a result, but I don't need to get this or indeed anything from Jason Aldean anymore. Hopefully not going to remember this either. Number 86, Breakin' Dishes by Rihanna. Okay, seriously, are we as a culture that desperate to get Rihanna back that on an album cut from 2007's Good Girl Gone Bad it's now getting traction? I've seen this coming for a while now because it's had even more success globally, believe it or not. But as someone who was there during Rihanna's ubiquity, I really did like a lot of her singles, but her track record has always been mixed. I've never really considered her much of an album artist, and I hadn't sought this out in nearly 20 years. And going back to it now, yeah, kind of a reason for it. Because this reminds me of a lot of the really dated elements of mid to late 2000s production that does nobody any favors. The let-in lockstep groove where the bass will shake the mix, the buzzy synth layers from the Dream slathered all over the budget snaps and claps cribbed from Timbaland, how all the discordant waves don't support Rihanna's voice at all, and where even as an angry song it comes across as blaring and grating with no atmosphere whatsoever. Then there's the content, which falls in the lane of Before He Cheats by Carrie Underwood in terms of revenge songs that are more about living out this dark fantasy than having any actual real meat to them or indeed making any sense. Rihanna admits on the second verse that she doesn't even know if this guy is cheating in her destructive storm of wrecking all his property, likely because she didn't write this song. But I'm not even getting much in the way of catharsis here in her performance. Rihanna's voice would deepen, get richer with time. Just this sort of bratty snarl is not something she can really sell, especially when the production's doing her no favors. So yeah, I get that folks want Riri back. It's been nearly 10 years since Auntie, but we don't need this. Number 83, City Walls by 21 Pilots. So I already went on at length about 21 Pilots and Breach on the main channel. I think this album is comfortably their worst. It ends terribly, and so many of the tonal choices don't remotely work for me amidst the desperate string of Easter eggs and callbacks. That being said, there were good songs on this album, and I think this is one of the better ones. The guttural bass churning up the riff around the buzzy synth, even if the lead guitar line could have really afforded to have some meat or muscle to it, especially if the vocals still sound so painfully canned and overcompressed, and I really hate that squealing that cuts off the post-chorus and into the second verse. Thankfully, it doesn't really last as the song kind of dissipates into smoky pianos and buzzy sampled callbacks to both Goner and Heavy Dirty Soul from Blurryface as the drums will crash back in. It certainly feels effective having the entire scene come full circle, even if the ultimate answer for all of it feels so goddamn bleak. Tyler Joseph as Clancy breaking back through the Dima City walls to confront his demons and ultimately losing and getting subsumed by them. But even as someone who really doesn't like the conclusion of this album, where this lands and broader thematic execution, as someone who actually can kind of tolerate Joseph's rapping, I think he's decent here. Not much in the way of punchlines, but effective in getting the plot where it needs to go. So yeah, in Microcosm, I think it's kind of good. Flawed, definitely not great, but I can kind of groove to it. But on the topic of white boy rapping, number 77, Charlie by Tom MacDonald.
Making it great. Pray that God will take care of us. The system is failing us when good men die for the things that they say. And I can't just be quiet. So I gotta be brave, cause this is America. Lately it's scaring us, but one good man can change it all in a day.
So I don't have anything to say about Charlie Kirk. What he said himself online was extremely visible, and it's telling that so much of the mainstream media has refused to play his own words in commemorating him. He's facing his God now the same way I'm gonna face mine. I feel bad for his kids more than anyone else. Now, this is where I could also get into a larger conversation about political violence, which is built into the system and society. It's an inherent part of enforcing the social contract, where the truly uncomfortable question is who is granted privilege in that contract versus who isn't, and how those who break said contract face consequences. I mean, I'm just quoting philosophy here, and the majority of y'all are not prepared for the full extent of all of that. Instead, let's focus on something that's more obviously offensive and reprehensible. At least it should be to both sides of the aisle. The fact it's not is telling. The grifters, piling in to utilize Charlie Kirk's passing to pad their own pockets. And I include the idolatry of using his face and voice in AI videos beyond the grave in religious context. You need a new circle of hell for something that vile. So it's no surprise that good old Canadian grifter Tommy Boy made a tribute song. And by that, it's more anti-woke histrionics, where the first couplet calls attention to a gun, where gun control could have spared Charlie Kirk's life, where nobody on the right ever engaged in violent terrorist action, pay no attention to every well-researched statistic that is saying otherwise, the current administration is trying to take down, or the treasonous January 6th in the corner. But the second verse, where Tommy Boy highlights liberals celebrating his death, I don't know, I saw a lot more Reichstag fire-esque bloodlust surrounding this as an inciting incident to enact violence on the left rather than any celebration, certainly not from gutless mainstream liberals, media, or politicians. And I could keep on debunking this, from using our to talk about America when, again, this dude is Canadian, or engaging with a complicated ambiguity of which Tommy Boy here is not capable. But we also have to address this as music, where it's this ghostly acoustic guitar and snap, even as he drops into chopper mode to rap with his weak croon on the hook. He's really just inadequate making any sort of tribute. He's trying to balance out grief with this call for righteous vengeance, and it's not landing. But what really struck me was the line, "The system is failing us," on the hook. Because it kind of gets to the core of how it all feels so disingenuous. Because Republicans currently control all three branches of government in the United States. They've got all the power. It's their system, half dismantled and half brutally authoritarian, and Charlie Kirk was aligned with that system. What Tom MacDonald doesn't seem to get, or chooses not to get in order to scrap up whatever crumbs fall to him, the system is largely working as designed. If he thinks it's failing him the same way it's failing everyone else, I don't know, maybe he could learn something. Probably would not make better music, though. Let's move on. Number 58, Camera by Ed Sheeran.
I remember how you looked tonight for all my life.
And now on to something thankfully more tolerable, although I really wish this wasn't the one Ed Sheeran song that broke through. Seriously, Don't Look Down was produced by Fred again. It was right there. But of the singles, this is probably the best of them. Ed Sheeran's voice still sounds painfully compressed, where every crack of his belting really breaks through on the hook, even if that is the range I like hearing him in, against the gentle mandolin and synth warp courtesy of Watt punching up the smoky swell of the mix. Although trying to drop in a more elegant backdrop of keys on the bridge feels oddly a bit out of place, even if the tinkling's all across the song. It feels like it's trying to get more tasteful for a single retrospective moment, and I'm not sure that's the move when the song otherwise accentuates so many ragged elements that are more naturalistic. But I do mostly like the lyrics. Ed Sheeran used a lot of light and camera and color metaphors in an otherwise pretty basic love song. How this person captures a perfect image where a camera will not do justice to that perfect memory that's gonna last forever. Cameras tend to be pretty good in getting those moments when memories will fade with age, but that is nitpicking when this song's trying to have a little bit more magical realism. And honestly, parts of that, I think it kind of gets there. Nice little track, pretty good. Check it out. And finally, number 53, Doghouse by Drake, Julia Wolf, and Yeat.
She in hidden hills in a glass house. I like what I saw and so I cashed out your man.
Anyone else thinking that Drake's desperate yet? Seriously, for as many times as he's tried to re-grab the spotlight, nothing's really stuck this year, or has him only seeming to look worse. So sure, why not get back with Yeat? Or get Julia Wolf, of all people, to provide the intro to this song. For those who don't know, she's in a very husky but slightly ragged brand of pop rock with brittle percussion and shrink-wrap distortion that I don't think I would have been impressed by when I was a teenager in the 2000s, and the painfully basic writing is not helping. But Drake apparently became a fan this year, and here she is to croon the opening of the song with a couple scrappy guitar chords that are promptly squandered because, wow, this sounds like that intro was stapled on on to a completely different song with a buzzy whir of a budget rage mix, and Drake either sounding out of breath or awkwardly nasal, and then Yeat's reverbed warble tries to take over the track with something darker and a little bit more chaotic with all the overdubs. It has me convinced Drake might be the worst part of his own song. I don't know whether or not I buy the hook as a slick shot at Kanye West or referencing Kim Kardashian there amidst taking Molly and staring at some girl's ass. But when we get lines like, just like Nicki said, money make her come, gimme quickie head, I'm about to run. And then after Yeat apparently disses Ken Carson, he says, all my bitches wet for me, I'm suited up, they scuba'd up. And then ends his verse with another blowjob line. No, this sounds sweaty in a really gross way. Yeah, disjointed, sloppy. Julie Wolfe probably deserved better than being the dead-eyed girl who's setting all this up. Not a fan, not good. And yeah, that's our week. Yeah, I really hate to end Billboard Breakdown for this chart year with this, but it feels kind of apropos. And at least the best and worst fall out fast, with Charlie by Tom MacDonald as the obvious worst, though Drake made it surprisingly close. And I think Camera not having any elements that outright annoy me kind of edges out 21 Pilots here. You win this round, Ed Sheeran. Next week, well, you're not going to see me for a while. Not next week, unless maybe on my website. Stay tuned for that, www.spectrumpulse.ca. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.